Welcome to Techstination. Joining us is Kelly Reeves, president and co-founder of Paw Prints in the Sand Animal Rescue, based in Newport Beach, California. Thanks for joining us, Kelly.
Thank you, Fred, for having me.
And it's not such a sunny day in California. We'll start out talking.
It's pouring rain, which I actually like because we don't get enough rain here. But yeah, I guess it's good to be in quarantine when you can't go out anyway.
Well, Kelly, with so many people working from home now, there are reports about more people wanting pets. They have more time at home, and adopting can be a great, much-needed option. But you have some insights, some thoughts about what people should consider.
Yeah, I mean, there's plus and minuses about wanting to adopt or even foster a pet during this time. I mean, the upside is one, obviously saving a life, and it gives you companionship, and it is a good time to transition especially a dog into a home, as you have more time to spend with the dog and build a relationship, and that's the plus side. But then there are a number of things to consider before adopting or even fostering and making that huge commitment.
What are some of the things people should consider? There's the whole concept, I guess, that should be thought about thoroughly because people may be at home now and be going back to work, hopefully, in a couple of months or so. But there are lots of other things, too.
Yeah, well, hopefully less. People can get back to work as soon as possible because I know that creates a lot of stress too. But certain things that we see for people to take into consideration is one, if they rent, we've actually received a lot of foster applications for people that rent, and then when we ask them about their lease policies when it comes to pets, they're actually surprised that they have either a pet deposit, or they're not even allowed to have a pet, or they're not allowed to have a pet of a certain breed or over a certain weight. And most don't have pets in the first place, so when they sign their lease, they kind of glazed over the pet policy, thinking, oh, this doesn't apply to me. And now it does. And I've actually heard, we haven't had this personally with our rescue, but I've heard other rescues say that people who rent that realize they have either a pet deposit or they get a pet fee tacked on to their monthly rent, that they're asking the rescue to cover those costs, and which is kind of ridiculous because our costs go to saving lives and not paying for rent. So that's one big thing to consider, is to make sure you look at your pet policies if you rent. So that's a big thing. And then knowing about the organization you are going to foster or adopt from. If you're fostering if it's an organization like us, we're a foster-based organization, so we don't have a facility. We're not like a municipal shelter, and it's almost like you have to foster sight unseen, knowing what little we know about any given animal in an animal shelter. So a lot of people are like, oh, I want a small hypoallergenic dog that doesn't bark, and I'm like, no, that's that's not really the type of dogs we rescue, and we don't keep them in our rescue. All of the animals in our rescue are already in fosters, so we only rescue from the high kill shelters. So you have to kind of be prepared when it comes to fostering.
I would assume many people are reluctant to make in-person visits today because of the virus, whether it's to a shelter or a facility like yours.
Yeah, well, we don't have a facility, so we do in-person meet and greets, and actually people have been pretty receptive when it comes to adopting, and our foster will take the foster pet to the home or maybe meet in a public place, especially if they have another dog. They want to make sure that their dog gets along with the one they want to adopt. So, and people haven't been opposed to doing in-person home checks, and we take safety precautions with masks and gloves, and we ask, are you comfortable? Are there any people at risk in the home if they're bad health or maybe a senior citizen or something that's a higher risk, and because we want to make sure everyone's safe. But we do prefer to do in-home home checks just because we like to see where our dogs are going. We tend to rescue the more higher needs cases, like more severe abuse, medical cases. And so we've put a lot into every animal we rescue. So we just want to make sure they go to a really good home because we know where they've been and all that they suffered through before. So people are surprisingly are not as reluctant as I thought they would be. And unfortunately, people can't go to any of the shelters like before. They could just walk into a shelter on any given day and walk around and look at the adoptable pets. And now they can't do that because all the shelters are closed to the public. And I think it's by appointment only.
I guess one of the dangers is that people or families might take it too lightly what the commitment is.
Yeah, well, it always it kind of seems like everybody's in this like spring break mentality right now, and I even have some friends that are teachers that have been telling about the challenges of trying to teach their students because the parents are home and they're out with their kids all day and they're doing stuff and they're supposed to be staying home, but it's actually a lot more challenging because people think, oh, it's a free for all and we're home all the time and we have time on our hands, but then at the end of the day. I always like to ask people, well, why didn't you adopt a dog before this? Well, I had a busy work schedule, busy travel schedule, and the kids in school and this and that. And I have to ask, well, when that changes and when you go back to work, and hopefully that's soon, just for our economy and people's personal finances' sake, are you going to have the time? Are you going to be too busy? And then you're going to call us saying, oh, I don't have the time for the dog, and stays locked up all day. So it's important to realize that just because you have a little bit of a break now, time-wise, that this is a lifelong commitment. It's not a pair of shoes you just return because you got too busy back to work when everything, is over with. So, and it's also to realize, if their home is appropriate for the pet they want to adopt. If you live in a small, studio, one-bedroom apartment, a Great Dane is probably not the right dog for you. And if you have, proper containment, if you have proper fencing, there's just a lot of things to take into consideration when adopting a pet and making that commitment. And it is a commitment for life and not just while you're in quarantine.
What about fostering as an option? What should people know?
Fostering is a great option right now because it is only temporary. Of course, we prefer people to foster until the pet is adopted, and there's really no set time frame. Obviously, puppies and kittens and the younger ones get adopted much more quickly than the seniors, and some of the other, pit bulls, some breeds are not as easily adoptable. And so we still say it's not forever, but it may be 2 months, it may be 6 months, it may be longer. So if you foster, then it's still a commitment. But the upside is for rescues like us, we cover all the costs. We cover all vetting, we cover all medical, we provide all supplies, all food, bedding, toys, leashes, and collars. So we actually have a couple new fosters that they weren't in the financial position to get a dog, but they're open to fostering because we help them financially. Not we don't give them money, but we cover all those costs, and it's very expensive to have a pet. And that's another thing people need to take into consideration is that it is a huge expense, and as the pet gets older, it only gets more and more expensive. So I think people just really need to realize that this is a great time to transition a pet into their home, but to also just do their research and make it a well-thought-out decision.
And we should point out that if people want to help defray some of those expenses, they can donate at pawprintsintthesand.org. Does it take a special person though to foster a pet? Because from personal experience, if a pet comes to my home, hey, it's staying for good. It can be tough to let go.
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, I'm what we call foster fail, so I am a 3-time foster fail because I just couldn't let him go. But I've had dozens that have come and gone, and I always look at it as, I can't, if I keep one, I can't foster another one, which means I can't save a life. And it's kind of bittersweet. I mean, we had one dog that just got adopted yesterday, and we had rescued him. He was only 6 months old in a kill shelter and on the euthanasia list, and a woman stepped up and out of the blue, she said, okay, I'll foster him. And he was kind of a nightmare. He had extreme separation anxiety, and she and her husband went through so much, but they were so patient and they stuck by him, and he turned out to be such a great dog. And I know she's like, oh, I've been crying, but I'm also happy that he's in a really great home and he's into the next stage of his life. And so I guess it does. I mean, it takes somebody with a lot of patience and somebody with an open mind, knowing, especially if they're coming straight from the shelter, they're probably more than likely going to have problems and either health and or behavior. And but it's so rewarding to take them from that point A to that point B. But yeah, the bittersweet part of it is when they get adopted, and usually first-time fosters end up foster failing because it's their first-time experience of having that type of intense kind of relationship and day-to-day care and everything for a dog that's come from probably like extreme abuse or neglect. So they tend to get pretty attached. But I guess the more you foster, the more you get used to it.
Well, what are some good resources online where people can go to learn more?
Well, you can always go to our website that has, I just posted a page on COVID-19 info, and it's at, pawprintsinthesand.org, and it's right at the top in our menu. And it talks about a lot of the stuff that we talked about here, and just kind of provided info on what people should know before they jump in, either to foster or adopt. But I know other animal welfare organizations have tons of resources. I know the ASPCA does, the Humane Society of the U.S. does. So there's some good resources out there when it comes to various aspects of fostering and adopting right now. And then what safety measures the organizations are taking. Because we're not facility-based, we don't have people in a facility. Everybody's in their own private homes. So we don't have as intense safety measures as some others, but we do, like I said, when we do home checks or meet and greets, we do make sure to wear protective gear and make sure everybody in the home is comfortable with meeting other people.
Terrific. And once again, the site is pawprintsinthesand.org. Thank you, Kelly, for all you're doing, and great to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Cooking with the power of the sun. Hi, I'm Fred Fishkin, here to tell you about the latest innovation from my friend Patrick Sherwin and his great team at GoSun Stove. The GoSun Fusion has arrived using the company's tried and true reflectors and a solar vacuum tube to get you cooking without the mess of charcoal, heavy propane tanks, or smoke. A really bright idea. And with an optional solar panel and battery storage and the ability to plug in at home or on the road, you really can use the GoSun Fusion to cook anytime and anywhere, day or night, rain or shine. I love what Patrick and his team are doing, and so will you. Want to learn more? Head to gosun.co to check out all of the company's products and innovations, and use the code Techstination to save 10%. That's gosun.co.